Hey guys, today we're going to talk about my favorite podcast. Yay! If you're into podcasts, that'll be interesting. If not, I don't know why you're here. Bye. Anyways, so like I've said before in my previous videos, I'm a dog walker, so I spend a lot of time by myself, no one to talk to, just walking, and it can be very boring. So when I discovered podcasts, I was so excited, and I get all of mine on the Apple Podcast app, but I'm sure they're all available wherever you usually get your podcasts. So these are in no particular order except for the first one, which is my favorite. So it is called Case File, and it is a true crime podcast, which is my favorite kind of podcast. Personally, I find it very interesting. He's Australian, and he has such a good voice for podcasts. His voice is just, I don't know, it's just so good to listen to. I don't know what else to say about it. But anyways, the stories are really good. He doesn't offer his opinion. He just kind of tells the story like it is. The one thing I don't like about the podcast is that there's sometimes cases that haven't been solved. And for me, honestly, listening to something and not having it resolved is like, but why are we talking about it then? I don't know. Like, I know it's interesting, but I really like stuff that's resolved. So I kind of wish that they told you if, you know, the person who was responsible was prosecuted or whatever was found. So that's the one thing I don't really like about it. I'm just not into those episodes as much. But Case File is for sure my number one, the one that I always download first and are really excited to listen to on my walks. So another one is Canadian True Crime. And she is Australian, but she lives in Canada. And so all of her stories, the crime stories, are from about Canadians, which is honestly kind of sad because, like, as a Canadian, I feel like, well, we're Canadian, we don't do anything wrong, but obviously that's not the case. But it is interesting, you know, because when she talks about cities and stuff, I can kind of picture where she's talking about. And it's also just interesting, I think, to hear about crimes in your own country. So she's really good too. She doesn't offer her opinion either, but you can tell that she really feels for the victims, which I really enjoy. Like, you can tell that she's like, you know, just really sad about, you know, the people who get murdered or victims or whatever. I don't know. I just like that about her. But she doesn't offer her opinion. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, she's really good. She only started, I think, mid last year, so she doesn't have as many episodes, but still one that I would definitely recommend. And the next one that I absolutely loved, which I wish was kind of a continuous series, is called Dirty John. So it's about 6 episodes, I believe, in total, and it goes on about one guy and the crimes that he committed, not only with one family, like his wife and her kids, but his previous family and all the crimes he's committed. And it's kind of a crazy story. I mean, lots of crimes are crazy stories because we who aren't criminals, it's hard to picture, you know, someone doing something so insane. So it is kind of a crazy story. I really enjoyed it. I actually listened to it twice. I listened to it the first time, loved it, told my husband about it, and when we went on a trip to the States, we listened to it on the way there, and he really enjoyed it too. So I kind of wish that they did more like that. I don't know if they do, but yes, that's a really good one. So that's a one story, but they tell it over 6 episodes, and they interview people in this guy John, his life and stuff. So it's really interesting. I highly recommend it. The next one is one that I just recently fallen in love with, and it's Dax Shepard's podcast called Armchair Expert. So before listening to it, I had no opinion on Dax Shepard. I knew who he was. I knew he's been in a couple things, you know, Without a Paddle and When in Rome with his wife, Kristen Bell. I also kind of didn't have high opinion of Kristen Bell before I saw The Good Place, which I absolutely love on Netflix, and I highly recommend that as well. But anyway, so the first interview was with Kristen Bell, his wife. So I thought I'd give it a listen. Oh my God, I absolutely fell in love with Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell. Like, I had no idea just how amazing they are. Like, Kristen is just so humble, and she's a humanitarian, and she gives back, and she volunteers with charities and stuff, and she's just great. I just love her. And then Dax, he's just like, he's also so humble, and he's so easygoing, and you can tell, like, he loves Kristen and his children. I don't know, I fell in love with both of them, and I have so much respect for them. And so I started listening to his podcast, and, you know, he interviewed Ashton Kutcher, Jimmy Kimmel, Ellen DeGeneres, Adam Scott. I haven't listened to the Adam Scott one, but I'm going to listen to that one next. And he just asks, like, really good questions. You know, he's not just like, so, you know, what's your favorite color? The questions that he asks are so in depth, and you know that he really researched, and he's just asking really important and interesting questions. And so I find out, you know, a bunch of different stuff, different things about these actors or whatever, these famous people that I just didn't know. And I just think it's so good, and I really love it, and I'm excited to continue listening to the series. So Dax Shepard, good job. I know you're watching this, Dax. I know you are. Good job. Okay, the next one is Criminal. So Criminal, you know, it's not one of my favorites, but is one that is interesting. So it kind of tells stories of crimes that have been committed, and they might be kind of like oddball crimes, or just interviews with someone who, you know, went to prison, or I don't know. It's just all about crimes, I guess, and they kind of interview people, and it's interesting. I like crime. I don't know, like, I don't commit crime myself, but I like hearing stories about it. I guess it's kind of like, it's one of those things that's like, I would never do it myself, so I don't understand how someone else can do it. It's like the sex trade industry. I just don't know how people do it, so I'm so interested in hearing about it. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. That's a really interesting one, and there's so many episodes, so I suggest you check that out too. Another one that I want to mention, which isn't one of my favorites, but I just thought I'd mention it. It's called Sick Boy, and it's, I believe, 3 or 4 guys, and they are producing this out in Halifax, I believe, and so it's Canadian, and they interview people who have sicknesses or illnesses or diseases or something like that. So, you know, there might be an interview on someone who has Crohn's disease, or there's one on a girl who had was raped. There's one on a guy who has paramedic who has PTSD, like a bunch of different things. And it's really interesting. I think they talk a little bit too much, like not about the actual stuff. Like, they kind of go off on tangents, which is why it's not like my favorite, but it is interesting if you want to learn about, you know, people's illnesses and stuff, and they're Canadian, so yay, I am Canadian. Don't know why I keep giving the thumbs up. Okay, so another one that I liked, which kind of fizzled out. I don't really know what happened to it. There was only like 6 episodes. It's called Sincerely X, and it's produced by the same people who do TED Talks. So essentially, they're TED Talks from people who want to remain anonymous for whatever reason. Like, one, for instance, is an episode about a doctor who gets burnt out a lot. It's called Dr. Burnout, I believe. So she's like, yes, us as doctors, you know, we're run off our feet and stuff, and sometimes when we get so tired, we make mistakes, and that shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be this tired, and we shouldn't be working when we're this tired and stuff. So she wanted to remain anonymous because she's a doctor, obviously. But it's really interesting. But I'm sad that there was only like 6 episodes. I wish they made more because I just like them. And another true crime one, you can see there's a theme here. I told you it's my favorite. Is called Minds of Madness. And he does essentially the exact same thing as Case File and Canadian True Crime, I believe it's called. Exact same thing. Yeah, so it's interesting and it's good. The only thing I don't like about it is his voice. I mean, he's got a good voice. He's got a really deep voice, but I don't know. There's something about it. It's not as easy to listen to as the 2 Australian people. I'm not sure why, but yes, I think he's really good, and he obviously puts so much research into it, and I will still listen to his podcast. It's just like, that's kind of why it's not one of my favorites. And I know this video is probably called my favorite podcast, but whatever, my video. And anyways, that's all of my podcasts that I listen to all the time. If you have any suggestions for podcasts that I should listen to, maybe true crime or something like that, please let me know. And I hope you check some of these out. If you're interested, I hope it was helpful at least. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.